Hello, good evening, everyone. Is this on? I'm going to keep talking into it until it turns on. Oh, there we go. Welcome to hour one of This Too Shall Pass. Thank you for being here with us to launch this wild adventure. What you just saw is our hourly ritual, which is kind of the pulse of all the 49 hours of this piece. So we'll be doing that every hour, and you're actually invited, if you'd like, to come join us. It's a very simple ritual. There's going to be a gong ringer. Each hour, the number of the gongs increases by one, and then there's a movement leader who is walking the 8 stage directions. And if you'd like to participate on the next hour when it comes around, feel free to come on up, and you just face the same directions that everybody's facing. You can move in any way that you want. You just follow the movement leader to face the different 8 directions. If you are going to join us at any point, if you'll notice right here to my right is the participation station. And because we are doing this on a university and universities value forms and waivers very much, we have some forms and waivers that you would sign before you step on stage. So there's a liability waiver for anybody who's not a CSUEB student, then there's or faculty or staff, and then there's an image release. And you warm up your wrist a little bit when you're filling those out, and you leave them there, and then you come on stage. So feel free to join us for the next hour when that happens, or the hour after that, or the hour after that. My name's Eric Coopers. I'm a professor of dance here at Cal State East Bay, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do this exploration with you and with all the many people who've worked on this piece. Our main rule in here is no cell phones, so please don't take out your phone even for a minute. If you need to look at your phone, please step into the lobby to do so and then just come back in. You can do that as many times as you need to, but we want to keep this a phone-free zone. Exits, if you need them, are all on either side of these walkways where you entered. What else? No photography unless you are with the Pioneer. We have someone from the Pioneer here tonight. What else? We have some ASL interpreters with us. Thank you for being here to provide sign language for the text tonight. And this piece was sort of the idea for it was born sometime after the 2016 election, which, however you feel about that election, I think probably we can all agree it's been a very strange time since then. And while all times could be seen as strange, this time feels especially strange. And so we've been asking ourselves and each other, what time are we living in? What is going on in the world? Is this the beginning of the end? Is this just a part of a cycle, a rising and a falling, creation and destruction, and whichever part you see us on that cycle? And this piece is a way for us to explore some of those questions and to sort of examine what does it mean to be alive right now in our bodies, in our communities, breathing, moving, singing, speaking, talking together. As part of that exploration, we're very honored to have a representative of the Ohlone Nation here with us tonight to help us launch this exploration. And my main feeling about the craziness of these times that we're living in is that, I have many feelings about it, but I'm not going to go into all of them right now. But the main one is that we've gotten out of balance somehow, and our technological advances have far outrun our wisdom advances, and that there are carriers of wisdom in many cultures, and that I think if we're going to get out of this mess somehow or get through it, we need to look to our indigenous brothers and sisters for guidance. There's a lot to be shared that we can ask for help, and I am asking for help from Kanyon Sayers-Roods. Please give Kanyon a very warm welcome. Thank you for being here, Kanyon.
Mishmin Tulis, Kanrakat Kanyon Coyote Woman, Sayers-Roods. Good day. I just said in the Mutsun language, my name is Kanyon Coyote Woman, and I am of Indian Canyon Nation. Indian Canyon is the only federally recognized Indian country between Sonoma and Santa Barbara. Sonoma has Great Rancheria, and Santa Barbara has San Ynez Reservation. That being said, Indian Canyon served as a safe haven for the indigenous peoples in the 1800s who sought refuge when the missions came and, let's just say, devastated the greater populace of the indigenous peoples of this territory. And then my mother is a caretaker of the land and has opened it up for all indigenous people in need of land for ceremony. And as we are a matrilineal society, it comes to me as I come into this phase in my life that I need to step up and share. Through what we acknowledge as Indigenous protocol, we become aware of these spaces and places that we occupy in today's post-colonial settler society. That being said, we learn about these spaces that had and do have and continue to have cultural revitalization and cultural heritage. So right now, we're in, Hayward? We are neighboring Huchin. Can you say that with me? Huchin? That's right over in Oakland Territories and a little bit north. We're in the Chochenyo Ohlone speaking territory. Can you say Chochenyo? Ohlone? Ohlone. And just that tiny tidbit of information that you have, you can walk forward and learn a little bit more. I happen to be Mutsun Ohlone, and I am learning the Mutsun language. Many people try and say, oh, I heard that there are like over 200 California native languages. Aren't some of those dead? Well, if you say it and you perpetuate it, you are therefore eliminating the presence of. What a lot of California natives say is, it's dormant. And you're familiar with those phrases, wake up, or we're waking up, or woke. That's also how many of our relations say that coming out of that dormancy, we are waking up and becoming more aware. So I've been invited here to hold space and acknowledge indigenous peoples of this territory. I'm a Southern Ohlone, but I'm very strong and active in this community. So I'm here with permission of my neighboring Northern Territories communities, and I'm offering my voice to honor that indigenous protocol. Here in communities, especially California natives, song, ceremony, and dance is so important. My mother and my grandmother believe that when song, ceremony, and dance stop, so does the earth. I too believe that. So I'd like to offer a song. This rattle is a gift from Colleen McLeod, and it came from Washington, and she's part of the canoe journey. And someday the Bay may be able to have a chance to witness the canoe journey, so I'm so honored and humbled to be able to carry this with me to ceremonies and gatherings, and I honor it by allowing intertribal and intercommunal communities and presence and energies to be present in this space. I want to offer you a grandmother's song, to honor our grandmothers, their grandmothers, and in all Mother Earth, for without them and without her, we would not be here. We share this time and space together for a reason, so it's with that humility, that gratitude, that present-mindedness that I offer this song to you right now. This is Kanyon's grandmother's song. Moi moi inside secret that's not so secret. If you ever witness a California Native gathering from dancers or even at rallies or any of these spaces, and let's say someone is up there, let's say like my cousin Karina Gould, or auntie, we're all related, and you hear her say like, welcome to Huchin, or welcome, I am of the Lashan Nation. You can say, oh, she goes, a lot of people don't acknowledge that California natives exist. And somewhere in the background, you can probably hear someone say, oh, and she goes, we are still here. And 3 more people, oh. It's kind of like that snap where you're like, I'm not sure I should clap, because sometimes clapping dissipates the energy, and you're like, oh, wait, I'm the only person doing that. Whoops. And so it's kind of like that indigenous snap before snapping was happening. So a good O is a nice way to just be present and standing in solidarity and here. Oh. So, oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna make myself a little more comfortable. So I'm actually really honored to be here because many times there are circles of people who tend to want to be inclusive, so they kind of make I'm not gonna do that. They make a list, like a checklist of, okay, we need to have the marginalized communities, we have to have the POC, we have to have these nations, we have to have, oh, we need indigenous people here. And then it's like last minute that the Native peoples get invited, and we tend to be there for the opening and yet not invited for the whole thing. And it feels like we're kind of being tokenized. And it's exciting to witness people say we want to include you. It really is important because right now, people are finally waking up to that, though it's still not in the healthiest fashion. And so I'm the one who has a little bit more extroverted energy and maybe some tolerance and patience for that because I can enterprise in that window of time. A lot of my cousins are like, I'm not driving 1, 2, 3 hours to get to something to speak, but they only want to hear the good stuff. They want me to do the song and dance routine, or they want the California Native to bless this circle, this ceremony, this gathering, this conference, yet they don't want to listen with integrity. They don't want to engage in reciprocity, and then they want to say thank you, and thankfully, they at least offer an honorarium at times for your time. Sometimes some of them are like, oh, it'll help your reputation, kind of like the struggle artists go through. It'll help your resume, referrals are great. As Native people, and you're asking something of us, it's a little hard. And so I'm really honored to be in this space, to take this opportunity to speak with you, and offer just a little insight. And it's exciting because I learned a lot while I was trying to research what was going on. But I was informed early, it wasn't a last minute thing. And I was respectfully engaged. Within Indigenous protocol, I've been blessed to have been born in Indian Canyon by a woman who wasn't expecting me, Anne-Marie Sayers. And because she's the caretaker of Indian Canyon, I am at the receiving end of witnessing what respectful protocols are. When Native peoples, we all have different territories, we have different creation stories, and many of us have different languages. Between San Francisco and Monterey, there are 8 languages, is what is known and considered within the Ohlone territory or the Costanoan territory. It's of the Penutian linguistic dialect, and you can go down the rabbit hole with that, but there's 8, and then there are many villages and different groups. So how did we all get along? We respected each other's territories. We were multilingual, and we traded with each other instead of coming through like some of the Americentrism. I used to say Eurocentrism, but now it's Americentrism, this colonial entitlement, speak American, all that fun stuff. And with that, being of respectful communal members that are intertribal, when people came to Indian Canyon, and they still continue to visit Indian Canyon, before even making a demand of my mother, they would offer tobacco or a gift from themselves, their land, their medicines, even art, or something of use to my mother, just thanking her for that, saying, thank you for letting me be here. And sometimes they did have inquiries, or they were like, I would love a little bit of your time. Are you interested in speaking with me? And I always witnessed this, and it was normal. And then whenever my mother visited other places, if there were communal members there, she would speak with them before she went. Like if someone said, Anne-Marie, we need you to speak way over here in this other territory that's not even near Ohlone, she would be like, I'll find out if I can. Because she doesn't want to take the spotlight being the local native, especially in an area that's not of her ancestors. And she would ask permission to be there, be it from the land itself or the community. So there's times where she visits different spaces and she'll just offer a pinch of tobacco to the land. Sometimes she struggles trying to find a patch of land, especially in San Francisco. Just a patch of land, and she'll be like, ancestors of whose land we are on, guide my words and actions so I can be respectful and honor the native peoples, histories, languages, and ancestors of this space. And there are times where she has told me that she's forgotten to do that, and something happens, boom, and reminds her. She's like, I need to ground myself, I need to be more aware. And it's like a respectful protocol, it's a way of life that we engage. And we're sometimes absent of that because that is an old etiquette. The same way that we have been normalized to say, when you go visit your neighbor, you go visit somebody else. You knock at their door before you walk in. As Indigenous cultures, that's how we respected other territories. We ask permission to be there. It doesn't happen so often now. So it's exciting when people do invite and ask us to be there, and then it's disheartening when it's a tokenization or it's a appropriation of like, oh, we want you to sing, but not teach. It's like, well, I'm not trying to teach everybody. So with the theme and the energy of time, there are times where culture and traditions should be honored thoroughly and, in a sense, not change. The same way if an auntie or uncle says, this is a traditional song that we would sing, let's say, in mourning or in grief, I wouldn't take that song and go sing it in front of you right now, saying like, I'm gonna take the spotlight and just sing the song because it sounds great and I like it. And I also wouldn't do that if I were invited to be part of a production piece. I wouldn't take that, it would be appropriation. But when I think about, and when I ask people to think about, that auntie or that uncle said they learned that song from their parents or their aunties or uncles, their greats, their great-greats, and it was a traditional song, always done this way since a certain time. Sometimes it's from the before time. The before time is, let's just say, pre-contact, pre-colonization, pre-miscegenation, pre-gold rush. And from that before time, that needs to be honored. Though what was that song when it was born? What was that song when it had life breathed into it? It was a song needed for that time. It was a ceremony needed for that time. So in this time, in this next generation, as I'm a youth, we need to be making those ceremonies. We need to be making those rituals, and we need to be honoring our own communal support systems and our energies to go forward in a good way. And not in a, I just feel like I'm gonna make it up and it's just gonna be this. That's art, and that's another type of performance, which is beautiful and great in its own. Coming to ceremony or coming to ritual, and in these circles, it's important to also align, because I can't quite explain it, but the energy is different. So when I share that, I also encourage people to think about your roots, think about your ancestry, think about where you connect, because Indigenous nations are from all around the world. Anywhere that we come from, we all come from this earth, and our ancestors come from various places, and all of them were stewards of the land at one point in time. And I kind of tend to blame things on colonization or other nations coming in and suppressing, because it's usually an outsider coming in saying, oh, you're not doing this right, or you're different, or they do things different, or other, or subhuman to validate atrocious crimes. But when we all align with our roots, it also helps us go forward. So it goes into how I've been raised in culture, in community, how to walk a good path. You honor the past to shape the future. And I'm really excited. I wish I had more time and had a chance to be able to see every single one of these performances. I know I'm way too busy. So I do hope to witness if there is footage, so definitely share it with me. Sorry. And so I wanted to just share about time. And in today's time, we tend to, today's society, and I'm going to kind of do a they thing because a lot of people who are in these circles tend to be a little more present-minded. That energy of they are absent-minded of the sacred. And some of us suffer NDD. Do you know what NDD is? Nature Deficit Disorder. And with, I'm going to move around because I'm uncomfortable. When you are absent-minded of the sacred, when we don't recognize that all life is sacred, we become disconnected. And the same goes to our addictions to our devices and our interactive means and technology. Those are tools and resources, and we need to learn and teach ourselves how to use them as such instead of solid ways of life. There's actually a new word, nomophobia. Nomophobia is fear and phobia of being away or detached from one's device. That word exists now because people suffer from nomophobia. Nomophone phobia. So when it comes to realizing this is a tool and a resource, I'm of the generation, and I bet a handful of you are, digital natives. It has nothing to do with being Native American. Digital natives. We were raised in a time where there wasn't not having that as an option. Though my generation, as well as where I was raised, in Indian Canyon, which is off the grid. Some of you have probably watched videos about off the grid, but this was like off the grid, popular before it was popular. We had propane, log cabin, batteries and solar, and a generator, and a water tank. And I always kind of wished that when I was going to school that we had, what is it called? Economic literacy courses. Even though people and teachers say, well, that's up to your parents to teach you, taxes and how to pay bills. I'm like, I was born and raised in an area where I didn't need to pay bills. I had to invest in the tools and resources to sustain ourselves. So I had to learn about a water tank, and I had to learn about propane and find out how to budget going to town and getting propane and gasoline. But I know nothing about PG&E. I don't even know the rules and regulations around that stuff. But in being raised in Indian Canyon and connecting with the land, and I was kind of deprived of modern amenities, so everybody else was all digital. They had their awesome devices and the evolution of it, how it trained and curbed our behaviors. So these devices and these interactions with technology are curbing our behaviors so much that we, even though it's a tool to connect, we're becoming more and more disconnected. And we see things differently. We see things as resources and assets. Think about the plants in the gardens. Think about lawns, these spaces. We don't see these plants and animals as our kin. Indigenous peoples of all territories are stewards of the land, and they tend to have a strong relationship with their environment, and they care about their impact. Of course, things that sustain us are resources, but they also are to be respected. So when I say that, when we are detached from these things, we no longer are invested of what's going into our body, what's going in to how we make these decisions, because we're detached. We go to the store. My mother taught me, I'll share it in a story so it's easier, it's not all crazy lecture. One afternoon, my mother has a guest. He's a scientist. And he's looking around, and it's a mile-long canyon. And she's about to take him up to the waterfall, but we're gonna have a quick snack. And he's looking around, he's like, wow, this valley is beautiful. It's granite rock, and coastal live oaks, laurel bay trees, and just beautiful green. And my mother was explaining, we'll have a wonderful salad. He goes, he's looking out the window, he's like, well, where's your garden? He was expecting row crops, because that's what he's familiar with. Right then, here, I had walked in, my mother goes, Kanyon, can you go get us a salad? And do it in the right way. And I grabbed a basket, and I grabbed her little medicine pouch that had tobacco in it. Sometimes different medicine pouches have different medicines. Sometimes we have cattail pollen, or even cornmeal or acorn flour. This one had tobacco and herbs, and I ran out there, and I collected, and I harvested the plants. And when she said, do it the right way, that means do it respectfully, talk to the plant, offer it an offering, let it know that I am thankful for the life that it's lived and the gift that it's giving, that to sustain my life, I need to take a life, and I know that, I acknowledge that, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm aware, and that I shouldn't harvest no more than a third, never more than 2/5 of the plant, and I'm thanking it, and I am aware of my impact. And I came running back. I had a whole bunch of watercress, and I had chickweed, and I had Indian lettuce, which sometimes people call miner's lettuce, which was like land lily pads. Delicious. And we had washed them up, made a quick salad, and because he had said it, he's like, what garden are you coming from? And I come in, she goes, all around us. And when I say that, it's just that tiny little moment of realizing all life is sacred. That if I have been taught to engage with my environment as respectful, and I engage in that interaction with reciprocity, the same way I was asked to be able to actually share some of my words here instead of just, hey, yo, do your song and go ahead and sit in the audience. Thank you, bye. It's more of an interaction of integrity and that reciprocity that we're giving and we're receiving. And the same thing with that plant. I need to give something of myself. Sometimes I offer songs if I don't have anything. I'll even offer a bit of my hair. But it's usually a song or a prayer that I offer to these plants, to these animals, especially the ones taken a little early like roadkill. And sometimes I use them. Actually, my cousin gifted me a coyote pelt. Actually, it's just a little head. And I like to carry it around with me just because I am Coyote Woman. And I just love coyotes. So my little coyote that I someday will make a little headdress.
Oh!
Oh! The reason why I was named Coyote was, well, actually my natural nature is coyote. But an elder gave me that name when he saw my personality. I'm a trickster, I'm a critical thinker, I'm wily, I'm always waffling. I border the middle line of introvert and extrovert. And even Myers-Briggs, I was all in the middle. That's not the greatest place to reference, that's so outdated. But I was so excited when something actually pointed out who I was. I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense. And now I'm starting to realize, I'm like, oops, okay. All right, well, I learned over time, over more knowledge, you start to evolve your thoughts and realize why we start to think the way we think and realize some things are not the greatest sources. But me being Coyote, I actually performed on stage when I was about, how old are you? 8? I was 8. I performed on stage with Dr. Daryl Babe Wilson and a young friend of mine, my best friend. And he doesn't like to say this, and I cannot say his traditional territory, but his academic reference, his people are from Pitt River territory, but he always called it the P word because that's not what they called themselves. And actually, when you think about it, a lot of natives don't like what certain people call them because it's outsiders calling them in. It's like, well, can you just call us people the way we call ourselves people? That's another story. So he says the P word, and he shared a creation story. And I got to wear a coyote pelt. And he kind of told us about it, and he said, you're gonna be on stage and you're gonna be sharing at our storytelling, Indian Canyon's annual storytelling. But El Nino in 1998, oh wait, I could have been 10. My bad, I was 10. Realizing years and time, my bad. El Nino took out Indian Canyon's roads, so we had the gathering in Santa Cruz. And he kind of gave us a heads up, like, are you ready? Do you want to share? All I want you to do is listen to the story and act it out, improvise. So we didn't really have a lot of rehearsal, prep time, training. He just kind of, and it was darker than this, so he just kind of was just like, all right, you guys go up on stage with the little pelts and perform. And so it was a beautiful story about how Coyote and Silvertail Fox created the world. And a piece of it is Silvertail Fox wanted to make the world nice and beautiful and convenient for people. So he made the rivers run both directions. He made acorn trees short with huge watermelon-sized acorns. He, what did he do? He made the mountains beautifully sloped, and he made, those are some good examples. Coyotes following behind him, like, you know, you're making it beautiful, you're making it too easy. So he messed up the mountains and made the Rocky Mountain Ridge. He's like rocks and shredded it all up. And he's right behind him, and he sees that acorn tree, and he's like, okay. Those are some big acorns, and it's short, that's so easy. I'll be nice, I'll make a lot of acorns really, really abundant, right? But I'm gonna make those trees really, really tall. Those acorns were really, really little. They gotta work for them. And the rivers come on both directions. That just doesn't make sense. They'll be able to go one way, but they gotta work. They gotta work. And as a kid, with no rehearsal, I got to act these out. And it was like on the spot. And I've always loved that name, Coyote. I was little Coyote then, and now as I've matured, I am Coyote Woman. And I tend to talk to animals, so I actually make a lot of different animal noises. Has anyone heard a peacock? One of my friends just heard a peacock the other day, and I was just like, oh, I can do a peacock now. Most of the time I tend to embarrass my friends in public. It's really, really fun. It's a great way to get the room quiet. Because someone's like, is that someone's phone? What's going on? I'm like, they're like, oh my gosh, it's you. But with that, I enterprise that attention. And you wouldn't believe that I'm actually an introvert. In high school, I hated standing up in front of people. I hate it. Get butterflies. I cannot read anything from a speech. I cannot take cue cards. People ask me, they're like, can you give an overview of what you're going to talk about? Nobody knew what I was going to talk about right now. Nobody. Oh. I keep you posted on timing because I don't have any concept of time. So keep me informed, just like, be like 5 minutes or something. Cool. Nice. Are you enjoying what I'm talking about? Because I know. Yeah. All right. Because I knew you guys were kind of like, oh, it's going to be an hour of performance and maybe some cool movements. And I'm sitting here like, I do traditional dance and like a round dance. And I do certain moves, but me on stage, I'm kind of like, I can talk a lot. Coyotes yip and yap, and I have fun with it. Because it's a way to share, it's a way to engage, and I'm really passionate about what I do, like to the point of a fault. I don't think I can function in mainstream society, like fit into a 9 to 5. I don't think I can. I've tried. Many of us artists can't. And I think that we ourselves need to be the motivation to shift change. Sometimes we feel like we're powerless with these voting expectations or powers or current set standards that society has tended to believe in. Those standards were made for a reason, and everything shifts and changes. And if all of us can come together and be of sound mind to say this needs to change, and we need to change it now, we can work together. The hard part is, a lot of us feel like we're individuals in our own struggles, and we have our own value systems, which are important. But we tend to, let's just say, trip ourselves out the gate when we realize there's something common, and then we want to find out our differences. Like, oh yeah, we all should fight for the water. We should fight for the water, that's a cool idea. Well, we need to speak out in public. Well, who are you? Well, I'll go, I'll speak. Well, who are you to be speaking? Well, what about our story? Our story is important over here in this area. Yeah, yours is important too, but why do you get to speak first? Or, oh, that's my cousin and they did this. We have differences, and it's okay. But we need to come together for the bigger issues. And I'm seeing it within intertribal communities, and it's breaking my heart. And when I was 5, going to elementary school, my mother always raised me to be proud of who I am. So being surrounded by ceremony, knowing that my umbilical cord is buried on the land, knowing that her umbilical cord is buried on the land of our ancestors, where there is a village site that was carbon dated over 4,200 years old, that I caretake for the land, and I know that that is my future, and I have no real choice out of that, and I accept that. My mother told me, you could do anything you want. If you don't want to take care of Indian Canyon, you can become a botanist in Brazil. And I'm like, I don't really have a choice. This is my life. This is my passion. This is my fate. This is my destiny. This is what is expected of me. And I accept it and I embrace it. At the same time, some of you have the opportunity to do anything you want, go anywhere. And I have a tiny bit of, not jealousy, not envy, just a little bit of, I wonder what that feels like. But I know it's not my walk, and I'm okay with that. But when I was little, 5 years old, proud of who I was and going to school, and I said, I'm a Native American. Or maybe I said Indian at the time. Either or, it was the accepted norm. A young boy, about a year or two older than me, said, if you're Indian, you're dead. I was crushed. I went home crying. I didn't know how to react. It took Mom a little while to get me back on track. And it's because he didn't know. He didn't know. And he denied my whole entire existence by not knowing. His impact affected me and my walk in life. So, hey, maybe someday I should look him up and thank him, because he's inspired me to realize he didn't know. And it's not exactly his own responsibility and fault, yet it is. And it's not exactly school's failures in teaching correct history fault, but it also is. The responsibility is within us all. And with that, since then, or I feel like that was a motivator, I continue to engage with the public around honoring truth and history. I like to engage and educate. I educate even some of my cousins and my fellow Native community, because there are things that have been denied to us. And even things of accessibility. I had to go to Berkeley to a language conference to be able to learn my own language. And I'm still hoping to go back again. And that Breath of Life language conference is so awesome. But it also was kind of painful to be part of something so beautiful. Language is Life, that conference. It was week-long at UC Berkeley. And they allowed us to have a tour of the Phoebe Hearst Museum and the Bancroft. And that is a heart-wrenching space, because it's both tragic and beautiful. It's beautiful in a sense that there were people out there who were motivated to study and learn and archive indigenous materials. Cool. Now there are better technologies that you can archive and release instead of archive, poison, preserve, deny Native people's access, and claim it's still for study, and have in excess of 10,000 remains in lockers in the basement of our ancestors, when indigenous peoples believe that when any burials are on Earth, the spirit of that individual is wandering, and you could come to any conclusion you want about what happens if that individual is wandering. And so it was tragic and painful to witness ancestral remains, sacred ceremonial objects on display, preserved with poisons and toxins, not being sung to or shared or engaged upon in an indigenous context, more of an academic, sterile, detached perspective. And it was heartbreaking. And it was beautiful to know that there were people who did care about learning other cultures, anthropologists and archaeologists. Some of my greatest friends are archaeologists. I appreciate it. But there's a different disconnect, especially of perspective. And so it was beautiful that I got to connect with language and awaken the language and witness archival material of these people who studied it. And then it was heartbreaking to realize that there's so many cultural insensitivities. There's so much, well, I don't understand why. Like, it's good that see, you're learning so much. You're reconnecting to your culture. Wouldn't you say that's a plus? It's like, Then, yeah, but guess what? Now in the 21st century, we have 3D scanners, we have digital archives. You could totally document all of them and give them all back to the Native communities that they belong to, so that community can decide what happens. Right? It's these institutions and these spaces that we have come to believe are neutral that are not neutral. Museums, academic institutions, schools, these spaces that we think are kind of neutral they're presenting information, they're being spaces that are academically inclined to share knowledge. But let's rewind back to a Native person, back in the day. Let's pretend this is a pestle. A pestle and a mortar are for grinding acorns. And there are different shapes and sizes for different ones. And sometimes different songs are sung. And so, some of them are just for cooking. And so, ancestors had a chance to make their acorns, and it gets set and placed. Devastation happens to that village space. Missionization happens to that space. The Native peoples are driven to different missions. The missions go out. The gold rush happens. They are culturally denied, culturally suppressed. This is more than 100 years after. And Native peoples are not allowed to speak their language, not allowed to practice their culture. They're not safe in public. And then this guy named Krober says, there's no such thing as a Costanoan Ohlone, because he was looking for a scantily clad, native presenting, native singing warrior or something, whatever he preconceived, and he didn't see them. He saw people in clothing working in their environments to sustain themselves in the spaces that they had to engage and assimilate to. Years later on, he then writes, there are California natives, there are Costanoans, but that tiny piece of writing doesn't get acknowledged in a lot of books. So especially when it comes to federal recognition, Ohlone and Costanoan peoples don't really have a strong chance. And then a few more years, and some academic person finds this and dusts it off, and they're like, oh, look at this. Dang it, I totally put myself in a pigeonhole by saying pestle. Maybe it's something else, because I'm now realizing they have to make an alternative narrative. They find this object and it's near other objects, and they're like, what we can extrapolate from its surroundings is that this item was found in this space for this reason, and we're going to put it up on a pedestal, and we're going to put it on display and say, this is some ancient materials of these Native peoples. This happens for all nations. You go to any museum, you see their masks, you see parts of their regalia, you see their art on display. What if this was like a prank item? What if this was a sacred ceremonial object that should only be touched by women of a certain age and engaged upon in a ritual that may not happen until maybe every other equinox? What if that happened? So that item shouldn't even be touched by men, shouldn't be touched by anyone at any certain time. But these people come and discover it, and they're like, we must learn from it and acknowledge it and put it on display. And it's for academic purposes, it's for educational purposes. And then when the Native people are like, what are they doing with that? What's up with that? It's either a prank item, or maybe it's like, how dare you, you violated it now we need to technically destroy it. It depends on that community. Why are you doing that? But we're doing it for science, we're doing it for education, we're doing it for this. Like, you're not even engaging in a respectful way. You're not asking the Native peoples to talk about it. You're not giving them a chance to engage with it. And then people are like, well, if the Native people had academics, they could probably tell us and teach us. So if you talk to any marginalized community, you might understand that that kind of field was rigged in today's post-colonial, entitled patriarchal community. Women didn't have much of a chance for education. Then we have slavery, and we have marginalization of many other nations. So now POC that are in academic settings are like, oh, look how awesome and amazing that person is for triumphing over this. Is like, well, actually I should probably do a poll on this. 5 academic mentors of mine that are indigenous said the greater portion of their motivation to getting their higher education degrees was to kind of have this attitude of, I did it, I can do it, I've done it. I'm sitting here like, that's some crazy motivation. So communities are empowered by those within a system that was set to oppress. So the next time you get a chance to witness other communities and other cultures, take a little lesson from, let's say, Buddhist communities. Come with an empty cup. Because when we engage with these preconceived notions that we think we know, or we've heard things about, we're already shaping our mind and our narrative and our perspective. And we're denying the chance of that community, that individual, that being, to reflect, share, and offer perspective. And so, in the beginning of all this, we acknowledge Indigenous protocol. And what I ask you to take from this is wherever you go, try and learn more about the Indigenous nations of those spaces that you're occupying. If you go to San Francisco, check out the San Francisco Infinite City, the Atlas of San Francisco. It says the names before the names. You'll learn that one of the village sites is known as Yalamu. You'll know and learn that the language spoken in that territory is Ramaytush. If you come down south and learn about Indian Canyon, I want you to know that that is my home. And if you shoot me a message, we can keep the conversation going. And you can learn a little bit more about these cultures and these spaces and these places. If you go to another state, learn about the native peoples of that land. Because there's so much you can learn. Because guess what? Some of the Spaniards suffered from scurvy when they came over here. So they were so superior, and they're like, these savages, these neophytes don't know anything because they don't engage in a civilization like we do. Yet, oh gee, they've been stewarding the land. My last statement. So if you believe in the Bering Strait theory, it's about 10,000 years ago. There is proof that there have been native peoples 11,000, 16,000, and with some 21,000 years on the United States, indigenous peoples. So yeah, some people did travel over the Bering Strait, but it wasn't the first contact of natives on that land. So we got 36,000, 12,000, 10,000, 5,000, 1,000 years ago. 600? 500. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Who did he run into? What language did they speak? What was their sacred mountain? What was their sacred water? Who were their neighbors? We know the name of his ships. We know how much supplies he had. We have correspondences, letters to know what he talked about. We know there was a mutiny against him. We know that he called the native peoples Indios. Either he thought they were from India or of God, Indios, of light. Whatever we want to believe. We know 1800s, missionization, gold rush. We know the establishment of some cities where the historic society is like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to witness these pictures of the city, and it was established in these names of colonizers. Fremont, Berryessa. All of these are colonizers. All of these have killed hundreds of thousands of natives. Know about these names, know about these cities, know about what we put pride in. 1978, 10 years before I was born, the Native American got right to practice their religion freely. The f is that? Literally, what the frack is that? Like seriously, wasn't this whole country founded? And here we are in the 21st century, and people don't even know that much about where we're standing. But native peoples, here's history that's documented. If you talk to an archaeologist, okay, I want you to play a quick game. First word that you think, when I say a word, spit out the first thing you think of. I'm gonna say a word, and anyone can spit it out. Prehistoric. Ha-ha! Greater portion said, long time ago, and dinosaurs. Guess what, if you talk to an archaeologist, prehistoric means right before here in California, right before the 1700s. Dinosaurs are way over there. So think about the native peoples have been stewarding the land for hundreds of thousands of years. And then some more came, Bering Strait. And then a few more have been stewarding and taking care of the land, caring about our impact. We were the first permaculturists, ecologists, chemists, animal and plant husbandry. We engage in our environments in a respectful fashion, and now we're going back green to realize our impact on the earth. Let's just practice with indigenous perspectives and acknowledge that the land is all of us. Pira kanama, si kompatian, heto kanoso, soto kanoso. Translates in the Mutsun language, earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Ama pira takawas, we are people of this land, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Kanyon, for being with us. Yes. Wait, Kanyon, before you go, Kanyon, come back. We just want to give you a little piece of our art as a thank you, and invite you to come back and work with us more. And hopefully, we're going to come to Indian Canyon sometime next year to learn.
Second Saturday of July is our annual storytelling gathering, public fundraiser, family-friendly outdoor event, beautiful space.
Thank you so much for being with us. All right, we're going on to hour 2, and we will do our ritual, and then we will share with you this too, which is the centerpiece of our 49 hours.